Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday morning to you, and welcome back to Now TV here on Morning Musings, or Morning Musings on Now TV, whichever you wish to express it. Uh, Pardon me, my name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I truly do appreciate you joining me here on Friday morning. Let me recommend that on Saturdays, 7:30, here on Now TV, that you join William Bell. William is a great teacher, and he has tremendous insights and does a wonderful job of exegesis. You will thoroughly enjoy William's teaching. So that's on Saturday afternoon, 7:30. That's Central Time. That'll be 8:30 Central Time, obviously. And like I said, you will really enjoy William's teachings. So, what we're doing, and what we've been doing for the last several years, is examining the issue of what I call the challenge of Christ. And as I shared with you last week, the importance of this challenge, or more specifically and more accurately, the importance of being able to answer the challenge of Christ becomes more and more evident, becomes more and more impressed on me the longer I live and the more that I interact with people. Just over the last several weeks, I joined another Facebook page, and it's Bible Study and Free Speech. Now, it's more than obvious that an awful lot of the people that are on that page are atheists. And over again on that Facebook page, I began posting my videos over there. And I mean, I was somewhat stunned, I have to admit to you, at how many atheists are there, how many skeptics are posting there, doing nothing but attacking Christianity. And over again, their main line of attack against Christianity is, well, everyone knows Jesus said he was coming back in the first century, at the end of the age. Everyone knows he didn't do it. Therefore, Jesus cannot be the Son of God, and the Bible cannot be true. Now, what's fascinating, when I began sharing over there, that there really is a legitimate answer to that challenge. And remember, the challenge of Christ itself is very clear. Do not believe me for my word's sake, believe me for my works. If I do not do the works which my Father has given me, do not believe me. Now listen, folks, these atheists, agnostics, and a few Jews, not many, and Muslims, not many, are very overt, aggressive in their attacks on Christ and Christianity, the Bible, because they believe, just like the great majority of Bible believers today, just like the great majority of people who call themselves evangelicals, they believe that Jesus was predicting his coming out of heaven as a 5'5" Jewish man in a quasi-physical body to bring an end to time, to bring an end to the Christian age, etc. So you have the majority of Christianity believing that's what Jesus taught. And you have the atheists who believe that's what Jesus taught. And you have the atheists saying to the Christians, well, you agree that that's what Jesus taught, but you also know that's not what happened. Just this morning, I am an avid reader of scholarly literature, and I'm a member of what you call a premier member of, and I was invited to join, the website called academia.edu. This is a website dedicated to scholarly articles, to reviews of scholarly books and what have you. And just this morning, before I came in to do my filming, I received in the email a PDF by a scholar who actually denies that the early church expected the imminent coming of the Lord. Now, I have to tell you, that's rather stunning to me. Oh, I knew that a lot of people claiming to be Christians tried to deny that, but the evidence is absolutely overwhelming. And so, it's one of those type of things where I find myself just literally shaking my head at these, quote, scholars, unquote, who overtly deny, like Hebrews 10:37. And now, in a very, very little while, the one who is coming will come and will not delay. And these scholars try to tell us, well, that's not really what it was saying. Well, yeah, it is. And so they involve themselves, they engage themselves. So they go back to the book of Haggai. And they say, well, you see, Haggai actually said, and yet a little while I'll shake not the earth only, but the heavens also. And look, didn't happen. Didn't happen at all. Well, yes, it did. Because the term heaven and earth is being used there metaphorically and hyperbolically. Why did God say he was going to shake the heaven and earth? To cause the nations to send their goods, to send their funds, to send their money to help rebuild the temple. Well, guess what? That happened. The Persians, under whom that was written, the Persian emperor gave command that all of the nations under his rule contribute to the Jews rebuilding the temple. So all of the nations did contribute, and the temple was rebuilt with those contributed funds. And so this is being completely overlooked or denied, one of the two, I'm not sure which it is, by these scholars who say, well, you see, Haggai wasn't predicting the really genuinely imminent shaking of heaven and earth. That's the end of time. So he was using the shaking of heaven and earth in some protracted, delayed, 2,400 years so far prediction. That's an absolute abuse of the text, ladies and gentlemen. It just doesn't work. So, what we find is that we have all of these scholars, we have skeptics, we have all these people attacking Christianity. And they're attacking Christianity upon the basis of Jesus' predictions of his imminent coming in the lifetime of the first century generation. What I've been sharing with you for a good long while now is that it is a total misunderstanding of the biblical literature to believe and to teach that Jesus said he was going to come back once again in a quasi-physical body as a 5'5" Jewish man riding a literal cumulus cloud out of heaven to destroy the literal material cosmos. That is a gross misunderstanding of the biblical literature. I'm currently reading a book by Edward Adams entitled When the Stars Fall from Heaven. And in this book, this scholar takes for granted that these Old Testament texts that talk about the destruction, pardon me, of heaven and earth, we're talking about literal, physical, cosmic catastrophes. But of course, those predictions all failed. We all know that, right? No, we don't know that. But that's the position of Edward Adams. So what he's doing here, and you really honestly have to catch the power of this, ladies and gentlemen. Edward Adams, and by the way, Richard Carrier, with whom I will be having a formal internet debate October the 12th. Be watching for that. There's an announcement of it on my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, or eschatology.org. And Dr. Carrier, Dr. Adams, they go to these Old Testament passages and they see the language of, quote, decreation, and they demand that they were predictions of a literal cosmic catastrophe. Now, I want to ask you to consider something before we get back deeply into our text this morning, or into our subject of the, quote, invisible parousia. All right? Okay, so according to these scholars, these Old Testament, quote, prophets, unquote, because they don't believe they're real prophets at all. They believe they were misguided men who made these false predictions. None of the predictions came true. Well, they didn't come true literally, physically, materially, if you take the language physically, literally, materially. So these scholars, they posit all of these different prophetic books, making all of these predictions about the day of the Lord, when the Lord will come out of heaven and walk on the mountains, and the mountains melting under his feet. Micah chapter 1, verse 2 and following. Of the destruction of Babylon at the day of the Lord, when the heaven and the earth would be utterly destroyed. The stars will fall from heaven. The moon would not give its light. The sun would be darkened. They take that language, once again, literally. Okay, so here's the amazing part of this. The Bible was written by 40 different men over a period of some 1,400 years. What we're being asked to believe by these scholars is that, okay, over here in Amos chapter 5, which is generally considered to be the very first Old Testament prediction of the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord will be a day of darkness and not light. It will be a darkness of doom, a day of doom and not gladness. Okay, so beginning with Amos in the 8th century BC, ostensibly, every single prophet after Amos, and we're talking prophets who wrote literally hundreds of years after Amos. Okay? So what these modern scholars are telling us, you have all of these biblical prophets, Old Testament prophets, who wrote at widely separated periods of time, and they all foretold the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord when heaven and earth would be destroyed. But all of their predictions failed. So here's what we're being asked to believe. We're being asked to believe that these Old Testament prophets knew absolutely nothing of the prophets who prophesied before them. Now, we know that's false. Historically, chronologically, Jeremiah knew about Isaiah and those predictions. Okay? Haggai knew of the earlier predictions by the other prophets. And yet, in spite of that, We're supposed to believe that even though these later prophets were well acquainted with the earlier prophets, every one of whom supposedly made false predictions about the day of the Lord, these later prophets did not learn one single thing. They did not learn not to make false predictions. Now, somebody might suggest, somebody might actually say, well, Preston, what's different than that? You know, we had all these modern day prophets saying, oh, 1980s, countdown to Armageddon. Oh, yes, Satan is alive on planet Earth today. Armageddon. 88 reasons why the rapture will be in 1988. Oops. 89 reasons why the rapture will be in 1989. Oh, and let's not forget Harold Camping, shall we? How many false predictions did he make? Oh, and we can't forget the Jehovah's Witnesses, who predicted the Lord was going to come in 1917, 1918, 1925. I have a book in my library in which, Rutherford said, millions now living. That was written way back before 1925. Millions now living will never die. Well, here we are. That was 1925, and here we are, 2024. How many of that generation are still alive? Somebody says, well, it could happen any moment. The prediction failed, ladies and gentlemen, just like their prediction of 1918 or 17, 18, 19, etc. Those predictions all failed. Just like the prophecy made by Joseph Smith that found in the Doctrine and Covenants. Joseph Smith predicted that Great Britain was going to join the conflict or the stress and the all of the tension, and that war was going to break out and engulf the entire world, and it was going to happen very, very soon. Now, he made that prediction, supposedly, in 1832, but here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Newspapers of the time were all predicting that very thing. Joseph Smith did not make an inspired prophecy. And oh, by the way, the Lord didn't come. The end of the age did not come when the Civil War broke out. Didn't end in that generation, did it? Do you get the point? So someone might argue, well, see, Preston, we've got all these modern day prophets, and each one of them makes their own predictions, Y2K. Oh, and wait, we can't forget 2015. Oh, wait, we can't forget now it's 2025. Oh, and by the way, just this week, some fella popped up, sent me an email, and said it's 2029. So again, yes, we have, quote, prophets, unquote, predicting repeatedly the date for the coming of the Lord and failing every single time. So is that what's going on in the Bible? Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that each one of those Old Testament prophets foretold the day of the Lord against Egypt, Syria, Assyria, the 10 northern tribes, Tyre, Sidon, etc., etc. So they associated the day of the Lord with the destruction of a given nation, a given kingdom. Well, here's the amazing thing. Each one of those kingdoms fell at the hands of the very nation that the prophets said they would perish by. But obviously, literal, physical heaven and earth did not pass. Maybe, just maybe, ladies and gentlemen, They were using hyperbolic, symbolic, figurative, non-literal language to describe the judgment of those nations. Do you reckon that's a possibility? Well, let's look at this concept of the, quote, invisible day of the Lord. Let me go back over in the, my goodness, already spoke for 20 minutes here. Let me cover again just a few thoughts that are absolutely critical. In Isaiah chapter 26, the Lord spoke of the wicked and the righteous. And it would be a time in which, Lord, first of all, he says, Lord, my spirit within me is troubled during the night, but I will seek you early. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the earth will learn righteousness. In other words, Lord, when you act in judgment, the righteous see it, they understand it, they know what's going on. It's God acting in judgment. Oh, but wait a minute. Let favor be shown to the wicked. He will not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Lord. Now wait a minute. Lord, when your judgments are in the world or on the earth, the righteous see that and they learn righteousness. They see your majesty in those actions. But the wicked do not see your majesty. Now watch the very next verse. Lord, when your hand is lifted up, and this is common terminology, the hand of the Lord being lifted up is his action and judgment. When the Lord would bring his arm down, that is image of judgment. Now, did people literally, visibly see some kind of humongous arm descending out of heaven? That would be ridiculous to argue such a thing. And yet over and over and over and over again in the Old Testament, we see the imagery and the language of, my arm will come down in judgment. That simply meant that the Lord was going to act in judgment. So, Lord, when your hand is lifted up, so you have the arm of the Lord coming down, his hand is lifted up, they, that's the unrighteous, will not see. Now remember, the righteous, we've already been told when your judgments are on the earth, the righteous see that and they learn wisdom. But when your hand is lifted up, they, the unrighteous, will not see. Oh, but wait a minute. But they will see. Now wait a minute. Is that a contradiction? Is Isaiah contradicting himself? No. But they will see, but they will not see, but they will see, and be ashamed for their envy at the people. Yea, the fire of your enemies shall devour them. Now, folks, what we have here, and John Calvin expressed it like this. I know this is a little bit repetitious, but it's important. John Calvin said that in the day of the Lord, the righteous would understand what's going on. They would see, they would know, they would understand. They would learn wisdom because they would see the majesty of the Lord. Now remember, Isaiah chapter 2, 19 to 21 told us that the day of the Lord, the great day of the Lord, when he would arise to shake the earth mightily, would be the expression of his majesty. But that would be a time in which men could run to the hills, hide in the caves, cry to the rocks, fall on us. Folks, this is not an end of time event. It is hyperbolic, figurative language that absolutely precludes any discussion of a literal end of time or a literal destruction of physical heaven and earth. It just does not fit. So what we have in Isaiah Chapter 26 is, we have a singular event. By the way, this is not only the day of the Lord, but this chapter is predicting the resurrection. And the day of the Lord, the righteous would see this day of the Lord, and they would understand, and they would glorify God, because they saw and recognized this was Yahweh's majesty being manifested. The wicked would see the same identical event. Unlike the righteous, who would go, this is Yahweh at work. He said he was going to do this. Now it's happening. Therefore, we believe. And let's not forget, over and over and over and over again, Yahweh said in the Old Testament, he was going to bring judgment against this city or this kingdom, that kingdom, quote, that they may know that I am the Lord. So the righteous would see this event. The majesty of the Lord would be recognized. The unrighteous, the wicked, would see the same identical event. It would be an event of judgment of the wicked, but a vindication for the righteous, i.e. their vindication is their resurrection. The wicked would see the same identical event and go, what? I don't know what's going on. What are you talking about, the day of the Lord? What are you talking about, resurrection? Now let me ask you a question, folks. Since this passage is a prediction of resurrection, verse 19, thy dead men shall live. Together with my dead body shall they rise. Awake and sing, you that dwell in the dust, for the day, for thy dew is as the dew of herbs. When would this be? Day of the Lord. Verse 21. So let me ask you a question. If this is describing literal physical bodies coming out of the grave, do you suppose that anybody on earth could see that event and go, what's going on here? I don't understand all these physical bodies coming out of the grave. I don't know what this is. My goodness, what's happening? Folks, even the most hardened atheist, if he saw every human being who had ever lived coming out of the graves, he would know what it was. I'm out of time. See you next week.